AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
And welcome, everybody. Sorry about the late delay for everybody listening live. Forgot to send Tony the links. I've just been sitting here waiting for Tony to jump in, and he's been sitting there waiting to send him the link. So we got it all figured out, and we're starting it up here. So, like the intro says there, we go live and we answer gun questions. Actually, we did it last week, so it's not like we've been a couple of times where we've been off for a few weeks. All right, wait, did we do it last week? We didn't do it last week.
No, we didn't do it last week.
So, in that case, what's been going on? Well, thanks for joining us. This is Tony from New Jersey. Thanks for jumping in. And what's been happening?
Well, I barely survived that horrific earthquake that we had yesterday, but somehow miraculously pulled through.
Yeah, that was weird. I was watching something live. Oh, I was watching a thing live that's like for my day job type of thing. Like, it had nothing to do with guns or anything. And there was a site. It was live in the morning here in Tucson, and and there was like a bunch of chatter in the thing, and people were like, "I gotta go. I'm in the middle of an earthquake. I gotta go because of the earthquake." And I was like, "Holy moly, what's going on in New York and New Jersey, right?" And then I started looking around, and I can't find nothing. I'm like, except for like 24-hour coverage from Fox or CNN. And I tried looking at that, but it was essentially just saying stuff to say stuff. There was no video or nothing, no footage, no numbers. So I'm like, what happened? Like, is this, because the last time we heard something coming out of New York was bad news, right? Or not the last time, but, potentially something coming out of New York could be bad news. Big skyscrapers and stuff falling over.
Yeah.
So from what I can tell, it was nothing. It was like a little wiggle, right? And
it was a nothing burger. I was talking to one of the guys in the armory, and I'm like, because really in the prison, we have laundry carts, we have food carts. So when they're rolling, sometimes above on the floor above you, it sounds like a rumbling. Well, I was outside the prison. Outside the secure area of the prison, in front of my office, and I'm like, I look up. I was like, "Hey, it's an earthquake." Like, it was that quick. I'm like, "It's an earthquake." And the guy I was talking to went, "I'm not worried about it." And I'm like, "I'm not either." But when it got to about the 20-second mark, it did become concerning. Like, is this sucker going to stop?
Yeah,
and then it did. Yeah, well, after it stopped, we have a whole bunch of protocols we have to go through. One, to make sure the structure's sound. Two, to make sure no one escaped.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
Yeah, so that was busy for the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
So when you wiggle an entire prison like that, do like a bunch of the doors open?
Yeah, that's what you have to go check. You have to go check, make sure doors didn't open, stuff didn't malfunction, that people are stuck in cells because, something shifted. To make sure that somehow in the prison that was built in the late end of the 1700s.
Oh, shit.
Well, actually, that particular prison, the current location, I think it was 1835. So we have to make sure like a wall didn't collapse in somewhere where we don't see it. So that kind of thing had to happen. But yeah, we're the longest continuous operating prison in America.
Oh, that's cool. I never knew about that. So, like giant rocks, or is it a bunch of bricks?
Yeah, it's in the old part. The newest section was built in 85 or 83, I forget which. But the other part, yeah, that was it's big rocks. It's big rocks and bricks.
And then do you think was that built by prisoners, or do they just hire people that know what they're doing? And
back in that day, I think it was probably built by contractors, and they were more than likely. Now I'm just pulling it out from overheard conversations from one of the guys that's historian. I think it was immigrants, but I don't know what country they were from.
Oh,
early 1800s.
Probably a country where they made castles or rock bridges or
Well,
something, right? Like
I'm
some country.
assuming it was European.
Well,
See,
think
the
about
prison,
America
the
though. They
prison has
serve in South
being a
America.
guard is not something that people looked up to. So usually immigrants at the bottom of the totem pole got those jobs. So depends on what era they were, Hungarian or Italian, from what I was told by, again, the guy who's a historian. He was
Oh
like,
yeah.
depends on what years. It depends on who did the heavy lifting, and even who built the prison.
And then are you close enough to Nellis Island that it's affected by those waves and stuff?
What was that?
Are you close enough to Nellis Island that it would have been affected by like the wave there? When he's talking about like the time frames.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh yeah, my internet's being normal, bad, I guess.
Yeah, it's roboting pretty hard. I don't. You say you're close enough to the epicenter?
Oh no, sorry, I was saying about Nell Island. No, I'm messing it up. But yeah, just the idea of the waves of immigrants.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, Ellis Island. Yeah, I mean,
Ellis Island.
remember, it's Trenton, so it's a major city even back then, and it's a manufacturing city. So you're going to get immigrants in a manufacturing city.
You know, I was watching something the other day, and I don't know what it is now, but they were talking about Trenton, New Jersey, and that made my ears perk up. So I'm like, oh wait, what? And it was something about the origins of the city, like the industry, I guess, that started the city. And I don't know if it was barges or boats. Was it boats?
It had to be barges because barges ran between Philly and here, because that's what one of the barge companies was Patriot, and that's how Washington got across to Delaware Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they actually took the barges out of Philly and hid them. They hid them and had to keep everything out of sight when they planned the invasion of New Jersey from the Pennsylvania side. When they came across what's called now Washington Crossing. Because the barges.
I guess I always, in my mind, picture that being somewhere near Washington, D.C. So.
Not at all. It's about 5 miles from me.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
right,
nothing like getting a win. Nothing like getting a win to have people name everything in the country after you.
That's true. What else has been going on, though? You had a diversity shoot since last time we talked?
We actually have a diversity shoot coming up on the 11th this week. So that's going to be Thursday, and can't wait. We got a lot of tickets sold already, a whole bunch of people coming out. We have, I think, Charlie from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. He said he was going to make it, so hopefully he can. We got Lauren Hartley out of New York. Excuse me, Lauren Hartnett out of New York. She said she's going to try to make it down, so that should be really good. And I have a new lower. I don't know if you guys saw it. I just did a Gear Horse segment on the 2A4E podcast. Tang with Tandem Cross gave me something called the Matador X. Matador X, yeah. And it is a lower for 1022. Pretty much is the AR pistol grip and controls. So you just take the 1022 out the chassis and click the top of the 1022 barrel receiver right into pretty much a lower.
So then the trigger group is AR. It's not 1022.
Oh, it's 100% 1022. Nothing is AR. The only thing you can take from your AR and put on this thing is the pistol grip.
Oh, okay. So the trigger group stays with the 1022 part.
Nope. Trigger group is a tandem cross, specially made trigger group. With tandem cross trigger, tandem cross mag release, tandem cross a bolt blocker, lockback, and adjustable trigger from 2.5 pounds to 5 pounds. You can adjust trigger, over travel, everything, and it comes with a Picatinny back end of that receiver, and pretty much it's just a pistol grip with a little buildup above it that holds the trigger mechanism. And it has a pick rail on the back, I think, with a so you put any stock on it you want, and their stock it comes with the ability to have it at 18 degrees, the stock, so you can still use the iron sights, or you can have it in line and use a red dot. So I put it in line, and I got a red dot on it, not slightly high enough, and I want to put it on. So I contacted Gideon Optics, and they just sent me an Advocate today, which is 1x prism scope with a riser. So hopefully that raises it up enough that you can use a cheek well and actually be able to see. I can't wait to get it out. I took it to the range, and Gideon Optics helped us out. He sent me a red dot last month, and I installed it, and it's a little low. So they sent me another one, and I think it'll work out better because it's higher. And I'm going to put that on. I just can't wait to get this thing in people's hands. Now, the whole thing is like $4.99, but you have pretty much replaced everything on the 1022 except the barrel and the upper receiver bolt. But everything else, it's like a high-end trigger, high-end parts. So I can't wait to see it and run a whole bunch of rounds through it because it. Oh, and I'm going to try to enter, what do you call those shoots with the 22s? Rimfire challenges.
Oh, I thought you were going to say bowling pin. But...
No, Rimfire challenge, because I had the other one. I have two 1022s. One I left stock, and the other I put in that high tower armory chassis that makes it look like a P90 with a suppressor on it. And what happened is the trigger is really mushy because it's a bullpup design, and I'm not good at this. I just started. It was my first competition, but because of the mushy trigger and the fact that I haven't ran the gun fast, it just didn't work out well for me. But Tandem Cross makes competition parts, and there's a competition trigger, competition everything on this particular thing. So I look forward to running it. And of course, when I run it in competition, I'm inviting anybody out. They can bring their 22 ammo and they can use my gun. I mean, I have, it's no stranger for me to let other people use my firearm, so I can't wait. So that's what I'm doing right now. We have the year planned out. We have some more dates so we can get a fourth and maybe even a fifth range in 2024. So we have those dates. You put them up for me, and I really appreciate that, having them on the website. This week, I'm going to post the next diversity shoot, which is going to be at Union Hill Gun Club on May 9th. So that date and those tickets are going up. And I may start doing at least one live a week on Instagram just to talk to people and have them answer questions.
Like associated with the diversity shoot, or just a separate thing?
Yeah, associated with the diversity shoot, because I'm trying to use it, of course, to raise funding and make people aware. We have a raffle going on right now with, SHOT Show swag, bags, stickers, whatever gear they gave us that pretty much is only available. Like, I took media stuff. So unless you're in media, you're not getting it. So your gun store dude didn't get, the water bottles that say media on it and stuff like that. So that'll be included if it means anything to you. But really, I mean, some people it does, some people it doesn't, but it helps us out. So
even if it's not your thing, now you've got it for trade to somebody who might dig it. So it's rare. So it's a thing that's rare. So you can appreciate that it's got some value to somebody, even if it's not, you win it. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And also we have the Battle Horse Knife Woodsman that they gave me. Cool company from the very beginning. I mean, you guys, know me, and you've known me since almost the beginning. I had a conversation with the owner of Battle Horse Knives at a gun show in Pennsylvania in 2015. And I told him about the diversity shoot that was only months old. And he went, "Here, take one of my knives, raffle it off. It's like $125. Whatever you get, hopefully it helps." And that was like just a handshake and a nod. And pretty much he retired from the company and his daughter took over, and she does the same thing. So I just think it's awesome that it's American, it's an American company, and they make these knives by hand.
That is cool. And it's cool that they choose that as their marketing, because they could just as easily throw it at any number of projects or people. that would either appreciate it or not. Oftentimes, the bigger the person, the less they appreciate the gesture or the, or the concept, and they get thrown it, and it just gets passed off with a brief mention, or it's just hardly even acknowledged at all. Or even if it is acknowledged, I mean, it's part of such a big thing that it's just one little aspect. So it's cool that a company chooses that as their method of making their brand known or whatever.
Yeah, they tried to bigger name brand people not long ago, and let's just say the firearm celebrity didn't really work out for them because those guys aren't advocates. Those guys don't stand for anything except they get paid. This is their thing. It's not really, and many of them aren't really good at it. Promoting companies.
So let's get into the
Yep.
questions. There's one from the database or whatever. When people ask the question over at the website, we got one just recently here about shotguns and clovering here. So why don't we go to this one, who's an actual human, probably out there, plaid in ammo. Am I saying that right? And then says, how do you guys use rust corrosion bags for storage? I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a concern of mine. Thanks. So, yeah, that's a great question. Tony's a lot closer to saltwater than me. I'm in Tucson, so I'm in a fairly, desert area. So rust is an issue, but only because we use water to cool our homes. But rust is it can be a non-issue pretty easily here. So I'll let Tony address this one.
Yeah, I pull back from that one because it's not really been a big issue, but I've had some rust appear on some of my stuff, and at that my handguns, and it ticked me off a little bit. So I cleaned it off with some steel wool, and that was it. And then what I did was put a Silka pack, and it was an inexpensive foam case, foam lined case, and that's where was it? No, it was my M1917 Enfield that got a little bit of rust on it and freaked me the frig out. So what I did was clean the rust off with some, was it 4.0 steel wool, 4-aught steel wool?
Really fine steel wool.
Yeah, really fine steel wool and gun oil. And then I just coated it with oil, a healthy amount, but not drenched it, and put it back in with a couple Silka packs. But hindsight, and truly in the future when I'm doing long range storage, because I don't have that much humidity, but we did obviously enough to rust my 110-year-old rifle or 105-year-old rifle. I really need to get some because I think it's worthwhile, only because it avoids pitting in your rifle. It avoids you having a minor heart attack when you see something that you like have rust on it and you're just like, oh man. So yeah, I think it's worth the investment just to get regular, storage packs designed for that. I don't think you really need anything fancy for it. I put Silka packs in it and haven't had any problems.
But again, it probably depends on the humidity and the time of year and that kind of thing. So I can use those things too, especially the kind you can heat up, like a plug in the wall or in some kind of case that you can plug in the wall, and it'll give you an indicator if it'll turn blue or red or whatever, and then you can heat it up and it loses the moisture. You put it back in there. I know people with big safes out here will pop a hole in the side and run a cord through it for the lights and for a rod, like a heating rod.
Yeah,
and that's plenty for here. But again, we're not really. We just have to lose a little bit of moisture, the moisture that might come from our breath or something, or like our body heat or something, like I can't even imagine what gets moisture in our safes here because it's pretty dry climate. But, when you're in a wetter climate, I'm going to have to default to people who know more about that because it could be a concern, I'm sure. The thing about the bags is back in the day, I've seen people who put bags or guns and other things in bags. And then if you don't treat them right, like you have to kind of bake them or something and really remove the water, like a WD-40 bath or something, and then oil it up. So like remove all the water and then fill all those pores with oil and kind of put it in there. I mean, there's a reason that the SKSs were in Cosmoline, right? So unless you drench that thing in oil and put it in a bag, that rust can still fester in there. And then I've seen some horrible stuff happen with bags, but they make bags now that don't let that happen. Like, I don't know how that works, but there's some chemical process, the material of the bag is made so that it doesn't allow rust to happen. And I haven't had any experience other than to hear about those. And that might be marketing hype for all I know. Like I say, I don't live in that kind of environment. And it's the kind of thing where they sell it to somebody like me, and I'd put my gun in there and it wouldn't rust. And I'd be like, oh yeah, the bag works great. But would my bag, would my gun have rusted anyway?
Yeah, my thing is there's no free lunch. So check that sucker and don't trust marketing hype or anything else, because my firearms aren't worth a lot of money. I mean, compared to some higher end stuff, but they're not making any more M1917 infills. They're not producing any more finished Mosins. And I don't want to lose mine because I didn't pay attention, So,
well, yeah. I got the same situation with some of mine, but even the stuff like I could potentially buy again, like I don't have the money to buy it again. And I don't know
too.
You're going to get insurance because you dumbass and left your gun rust out. But go in there and fiddle with them. That's a reason to go in there and fiddle with them once in a while. Neglect is where rust comes from. I mean, I say that, and I haven't fiddled with some of mine in a while, but get in there and clean them once in a while. If it's your birthday or some anniversary, on July 4th or something, go in there and clean your guns or something. Plus, it's an option, or it's an opportunity, to let that kind of knowledge on to the next generation. Bust open the safe. I don't know if people who bought guns when they're 30 years old or something understand that when, like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, maybe we'd go to the range, or I don't know, for some reason, somebody to get the inkling to go bust the safe open and clean a gun or something. And they're not going to let me sit there watching them. They'd be like, here, take this gun and clean it. Like, this is the last gun you shot, clean it. Like, essentially, though, every time I went shooting, I would clean my guns when I came home because I liked it. It was fun. It was it's another way to hang out with my guns, or with the guns, I guess. But anyway, I don't know if you ever did that, like where, you just go to the gun cabinet or whatever it was when you were a kid and, just say, hey, let's maintain these tools. Let's clean them up and get them ready for hunting, maybe get them cleaned up after hunting. Maybe after a weekend shooting, or, a cousin somebody or uncle somebody's coming into town, so we're going to clean up these 3 and take them shooting. Or, hey, let's look at grandpa's gun and make sure that it's cleaned up because nobody ever shoots it. So anyway, we'd have days like that, and maybe it was a rainy day, or maybe it was just like, say, we were at the range and we cleaned up our guns and we were just like in the mood to clean guns, so we'd pull out everything else and just clean up everything, just to make sure everything was in good shape or what, and talk stories about it. I was a kid, so I was asking questions about where this one came from and stuff. So, I mean, it's a null answer, but, just say that here's an opportunity, since I don't have a good answer for you, use those opportunities or use those as opportunities to have fun with the guns, normalize them. I don't know if you ever clean your garden equipment at the beginning of the spring or as you put the stuff away in the fall, but, same kind of ritual.
True.
Pull out the snow stuff, the snow blower or the snowmobile or the snow shovels or whatever it is, the snow boots. Do you do that quietly, or do you use that as an opportunity to pass on that knowledge? Look, here's what Grandpa used to say, and here's what I figured out that Grandpa's crazy about. Or, Grandpa said this and it still works, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I don't know if that's a good answer or not. We're here to answer them. We can't say our answers are always going to be useful. But if there's somebody out there that knows an answer to Plaid's question, then definitely chime in. This is a collaborative thing here. So one of the questions that came in recently from the actual database, or I keep saying database, from the website, it goes to a database. I'm looking at a spreadsheet here. It says, I only got most of the question in there. Oh yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting that we're not actually pass and win this whole time. There's a little Pug, my co-host. He ate breakfast this morning. I decided to wake him up and give him some breakfast. So he eats breakfast about 6 feet over that way. He walked over here and he just pooped. So that exhausted him evidently, and now he's so I had to clean up his poop right before the show. Sometimes people think he's a good dog because he's little. He's not a good dog. He's not always a good dog. Anyway, yeah, but right on, winter is cleaning and repair time. So let's get back to this question that came in. It's about shotguns. I recently bought a semi-automatic shotgun. To my understanding, the gas piston can be flipped one way to handle light loads or flipped the other way to handle heavy loads. How do I know which way? And this is where it breaks off. How do I know which way to flip it to handle heavy turkey loads?
All
So,
right.
you know, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know a darn thing. I know you need to contact either the manufacturer or download a manual from online to find out exactly what your firearm does, and don't take somebody's word for it who's not an expert online. I definitely am not on semi-automatic shotguns, so that's where I'm at with that. Please find out before you mess something up, because I know. Now, my thing about semi-automatic shotguns is I like Browning A5s. I wanted one of those, and when you read about them, you read about people mess them up all the time because they move the gas rings around incorrectly. And that damages the shotgun, or it doesn't give them the function that they need. So, yeah, please check it out.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm just going to reiterate that for people that don't realize it, gun manufacturers, unless they're out of business completely, and oftentimes, even if they've gone out of business, but some other company picked up their line, almost always, if the company is still kicking, you can get a manual. And it doesn't matter if you own the gun or if you bought the gun, I should say. You picked it up used, or you found it, or grandpa gave it to you, or grandma gave it to you, or something. Then you can still contact them and go, hey, I have this gun. Can you give me a manual? And they'll be like, heck yeah. And on the internet days, yeah, you can just download it.
Yeah, there's actually a website, and I wish I knew it because I had it saved on my other computer. That was nothing but old manuals of somebody taking time to upload.
Zillions of them, like seriously, all of them. It was awesome. Gun shops would use it. It was awesome. That's why the internet's so awesome. And for a long time, when the internet was kind of new and there wasn't all these social things for people to kind of participate in, that's all it was people like that would create resources like that. And it was just like every day you could find something interesting and new. Conversations like this that happened were mainly to talk about all the cool stuff that people had built out there. It's still out there. We just don't even think about it so much anymore. But yeah, that's what I was thinking of too, is there's man, it was a huge list. And it was crazy how many, because basically I think what it did is it just created a place and people could upload theirs, or at least add theirs, to the mix. And whoever it was took this time to post them all up there. But even
Yeah,
if it's
I would try
working,
to come up with the weirdest anything that I stumbled across. A Montgomery Ward, Glenfield, something. That's just there.
so in any case, you can get a manual somehow or another, and it'll tell you the answer to your question. But more than likely, you could probably look at it. Most things aren't so complicated that you can't look at it and think about, like, well, if I put it this way, it's going to choke the gas, and that's probably going to make this thing happen slowly. And if I go the other way, it's probably going to let more gas through, and then this will happen more quickly. And just kind of follow it through, which makes more sense. Which would you want for a harder load, faster load, or whatever it is, the more pressure or whatever I guess the words are. But I looked around and I couldn't find, just as we were kind of starting the show, in case that question would show up as maybe a forum or some frequently asked questions on a website, but I didn't see anywhere. So it's either too many shotguns have that part, or there's only a couple that have that part, but I didn't find anything about a shotgun that had that part that flips back and forth. Go ask Clover. He may know just off the top of his head if it's something he's encountered before. But otherwise, we'll move on. If anybody's out there live, there are a bunch of people. But I don't know if you see when you guys are doing the other podcasts you're on. I don't remember. Does it show you that there's 11 people watching right now up at the top?
No. There's always more people watching than we knew, than it said, because I think I can only see it when people comment. Oh, that people watching thing is always wrong. I think he froze up. So yeah, on the shotgun things, I stick with pumps because they're simple, and semi-automatics are really expensive. So, but I do have my eye on Military Arms Corporation. They have a copy of, they call it the M1014, I think, or M1041. I hate when I switch numbers around, but it's like a Benelli clone. And you can pick that up, and it's not very expensive compared to most semi-automatic shotguns. If you go and check it out on militaryarmamentcorporation.com, you can see their line. It's a subdivision or maybe a sister company of TSOS. So they make this shotgun clone. They also make MP5 clones, and they make a clone of Delta Force's 1911 from the early 90s or late 80s. And I want to get one of those. Oh, and they also have a double stack 9mm 2011 type pistol. So that's the shotgun I want to get. I'm going to contact them. But see, the crazy thing about doing diversity shoots at indoor ranges, I can only use 12 gauge buckshot when I bring a 12 gauge shotgun, either buckshot or slugs. And I'm not introducing anybody to firearms with a slug. So I might have to find someone that sells us low recoil 12 gauge buckshot.
Or them little 1-inch shells.
Yeah, if it runs them.
Yeah. Which one are you talking about?
The company called Military Armament Corporation, TSOS, or a subsidiary of TSOS, actually bought that name. Same name, of the company that produced Mac 10s and Ingram Mac 11s. So they purchased a name, and they're putting out M4 clones, M4 shotgun clones, M4 Benelli clones.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I was going to say you would think a modern gun, they would just take that into account because it's really just a matter of making the follower or whatever that thing's called, the lifter or whatever it's called, to the ramp. I don't know what it's called on that shotgun, but to make that the right size or the right angle or whatever. And usually they do because they know people want to be able to do that. And back in the day, they just didn't even think about 1-inch shells, but they don't always do that. And then something they're trying to make a replica, depending on how true they're trying to make the replica, they're not going to incorporate something modern like that necessarily. Plus,
Yeah, crazy.
An issue that is for designers in 2024 anymore.
And then for me, I live in Jersey where I can't have a semi-automatic shotgun with a pistol grip. Can't have a separate pistol grip. So they sell one with a Monte Carlo stock, and that's what I'm going to have to get.
I'm bringing up, thanks again to everybody who's Tony and everybody who's patient with my horrible internet connection. I went to go try to actually change the wire this morning. I even had the pliers and stuff out. And then I realized that my connectors, the little ends for the coax cable, are essentially, I'm not going to be able to get to them for a long time. They're behind a lot of garbage in the house right now. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll go buy another cable. I hate doing that because I have a big spool of cable out here that I just usually chop a hank off of it and put ends on and rerun. But anyway, sorry for my internet connection here. There's another question coming from the actual website. Does your bolt action rifle's bolt have to have a specific way to shoot the projectile, or what's the safest way to shoot your high-powered firearm without it blowing up? I'm trying to protect my home. So that's an interesting way to word it. I'm trying to figure out what they're actually asking there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether it's a English is not my first language translation problem, or I don't know a lot about firearms, and and the problem is still the same for us, trying to figure out what they're really trying to say.
Right, or it could be both, but yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking is, well, I know they don't know enough about firearms, so I'm trying to decipher, does your bolt action rifle's bolt have to have a specific way to shoot the projectile? Man, that's an interesting way to ask a question. If anybody else out there can figure out what they're trying to ask, I'm going to go backwards then, trying to protect my home with a bolt action. Instead of scorning them for the idea, I'm going to say maybe they live in a place where that's their only option, or that's what they're most comfortable with. So go into like a scout rifle or a short nagant. I guess this SKS is a bolt action, but like a short whatever they call like a paratrooper nagant. I don't know if you've seen this short nagants.
Yeah, the guns,
Like
M39s.
but something like that is an option. It's not your fastest response or nothing, and it's going to definitely be a large bullet. But you can get Ruger Americans, I think, in 223.
Yep.
And I mean, I'd rather have that than limp noodle.
Okay. So in New Jersey, when I first moved here, before I got my firearms ID card and could legally even legally buy a firearm in New Jersey or touch a firearm in most gun stores, the only thing I had was my Mosin Nagant, my Enfield, and a Ruger 1022. Matter of fact, I didn't even have a Ruger 1022. So I just had World War I issue bolt action military rifles if I needed them for home protection. Now, totally understand that's not what I want to go to. That wasn't my go. But I was in Jersey. You have to have references, 2 non-related references that are willing to co-sign for you getting a firearms identification card, which allows you the privilege in New Jersey of even touching a gun at a gun shop. If you don't have a firearms ID card, they won't even hand you a pistol across the table or counter. So my home defense weapon was a friggin' old ass 1899 built in the Tula factory Mosin. And you get soft point rounds, you take your thing to the range and you run it. Now, is there any particular way you buy the correct ammo for that particular firearm and you learn how to run it? There is no special way that I know of that you load projectiles into bolt action that stops it from, or that would cause it to blow up. Either it'll work or it won't work. Just get the correct ammo for it. If it's a modern firearm, by the way, make sure you get like if you have something that's that's cowboy action, but still, if you have a 4570 from the Civil War, you can't put Buffalo bore 4570 rounds in it. It's going to explode. So make sure you get the appropriate ammo for your rifle. Also, a high-powered firearm, you have to be aware of not only your target but what's behind it, regardless of how high-powered it is. If we're talking rifle calibers, military surplus rifle calibers, they can travel through a human body and into other stuff. So just be aware of that when you're choosing ammunition. There is not much self-defense ammunition for 30-06, 7.62 by 54R, and 6.5 freaking Swiss. But you may be able to get hunting ammo for those that open up and will go through less things. After it passes through a target, it will go through less things than military ball ammo.
Oh, good points. As you're mentioning that, or as you're saying that, I'm thinking, let's say the worst case scenario that I can think of, because the best case scenario is they have a really nice Milsurp rifle, in which case their only option is not to use that rifle. They could easily trade or sell that rifle for a really nice modern thing, whatever they're comfortable with, or whatever's legal in their area. And that can be done, through a gun shop or at a gun show or with an individual, right? And that can be done with help or with research or not, right? Like, so you can, if you have a best case scenario, you have a really nice Milsurp rifle, but what's the other end of that? Like, the opposite of that would be if you have kind of a bubbled or butchered like a DIY accident gun. That's the worst case scenario. I think, and I might be wrong, but because the time has gone on and there's just a lack of what am I trying to say, like just quantity of military surplus rifles anymore, and people that have a pristine one are definitely not going to modify it. I'm wondering if a modified Bubba one has way more value than we would have thought of in like the 90s or in the 2000s when they were essentially $89 guns because no one wanted them and it would have been too much effort to put it back to shape. And you could buy a good one, for just a few dollars more. I'm wondering if a Bubba one, it would still be worth enough to trade it for a modern something better.
Out of okay, there was I don't think we call everything collector grade, but they were like that collector grade, no scars on it at all, barely issued. And then they were like work guns. I'm just talking about regular stuff you could find at the gun shop. Then they were like guns that were issued and you see some, character on it. And then you had the gun show, the fixer-uppers, the gunsmith fixer-uppers. But right above gunsmith fixer-uppers, you had the ones with the trench art on it that weren't really wanted at that time by us. The value of those have gone up.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, the values of those have gone up. But Bubba, I think they're still on the lower part of, but I still think you'll get more for it than if you pick that thing up for, $80 in the 90s or the 2000s because somebody had Bubba it up.
A couple hundred now, right?
Yeah. You can probably get enough. You can probably get enough to buy yourself something modern like a Ruger American that takes AR-15 magazines.
And that's all I was going to suggest is that at least think of that option too, because everything Tony said was valid. And again, I just wanted to throw that out there that you're not stuck with whatever you got, because oftentimes people think, well, I got, and I can't afford something new, so therefore I'll stick with what I got, not realizing what you have may have a lot of value to somebody.
Also, it's I'm going to actually talk about this on the next podcast. It's what we've seen because we've been into firearms as kids. So we read the Soldier of Fortune, we read the Shotgun News, and all that, the American Survival magazines going back to the 80s. And we've watched trends and what's popular come and go. So your old gun might be, your old powerful gun could be a 30-30 lever action. And that has gone full freaking circle from hunting gun that was in everybody's home, even in some squad cars, depends on where you at in the 80s, to I can't believe you own that FUD gun, to now throws a Picatinny rail and an M-Lock 4N on it, and you're cutting edge and you're the coolest kid on Instagram. Crazy circle, right? For something as old as a 30-30, which was what, developed in the late 1800s?
I always use 1850 because that's when Colt came around, or no, that's when Smith & Wesson did the revolver, but that's a good question. Too many lever actions I'm trying to think of. I think it was when they had
it was called the Winchester Centerfire, and it was the late 1800s. And they really tried to get it to cross over to other manufacturers, and other manufacturers wouldn't put, so they put 30-30. And then it became 30-30 WCF on the side of firearms. So yeah, that was late 1800s when they, I think, Marlin 336. Geek stuff I only used to tell people in my NRA rifle class when we talked about how deep the geekery can go. And I'm like, and this is just the surface of nerdism when it comes to firearms.
So sorry to leave you hanging. I'm looking at some of the other questions, and one of them came with pictures, and I'm going to wait until I can figure out how to do an image search, because essentially they just gave us pictures of some old rifle and then said, what is this? And then this other one, though, says, this one's from February, but it says, which is a better gun between the CF98 and the ADP 9mm? Do you happen to know either of those or both of those off the top of your head by any chance?
No.
Okay, yeah, I don't either. So,
CF.
a CF98, and I have no idea what this is. It looks like a Norinco, I guess. So it's a Chinese version of maybe a high power CC or something. I'm not good enough at all the different pistol clones. And then the ADP-9 is a Wilson Combat pistol that's polymer, and it looks like it's probably super old and rare. So I'm going to bring them both up on the screen here in a second, as soon as I can find them. I don't know if, again, we got a ton of people watching. It's even grown from before. So if anybody out there knows anything about these, feel free to chime in. I'll just shut up, everybody. Quick.
Oh.
Hey. Come on, man. It's super bad today. So this is the ADP-9, and it says Wilson Combat. I've never heard of it before, but you could fill a book with all the 9mm I don't pay attention to. But this looks old just because of all the weird finger grooves and the extended thing on the magazine and what. There's one at Cabela's, though, so whatever that means. And then here is the CF98, which is, I guess, says Norinco on one of these, Norinco CF98 9mm pistol. So, I'm assuming this is new to all of us, or many of us at least. What do you think? What you think is better? This Chinese? So it's high power? What is that? A clone of?
Yeah, all right. So I just read through the firearm blog article on the South African version of the, what is it, the ADP? And it wasn't really stellar. Wilson Combat brought it into the country, contracted to have second gen built to try to improve it. Now let me go over to the CF98 because I love looking at stuff like this.
So that started out as South America, and then Wilson was like, well, that sounds cool. Let's bring it in.
South Africa.
Interesting.
South African, not South American. It was from a South African designer that came out with the revolving shotgun, that street sweeper. It was that dude. He came out with this. And all right, so now let's go to this thing. Has a rotating barrel, hammer fire, decocker combo. And it's a export version of their QSZ92. This is another gun from Forgotten Weapons. I don't know why you're worrying about the dependability of this unless you're somewhere you can't get something that actually has a reputation that you know something about from the major manufacturers in Western society. Why you're messing around with either a old South African design that Gen 1 kind of sucked, and you're not going to find this on Wilson Combat right now, or going for a Chinese copy of one of their firearms. When they're police trade, if you're in America, where their police trade-ins at. If you just like buying off the, off the beaten path firearms, who cares about the dependability? Buy both.
Well, they're saying which gun is better. So I'm going to go with this Chinese one because it looks like it's full size and it looks like it's new. And this thing, like you say, it looks like Gen 1 polymer gun tech. It doesn't look like, look at that tiny little trigger guard and pins going through the trigger. And I don't know what these things are, but there's pins going through there. No, thank you. Looks like, and like you say, both of these, once they fall apart, you're screwed. And they're both going to fall apart. So good luck with that.
Why is the CF98? Why is the CF98 barrel only rated for 8,000 rounds? Okay.
There you go.
So, hey man, if you like strange stuff, because I'm not going to judge you for that. Heck, I bought CZ75s back before most people knew what a CZ75 was, because I just liked what they are, how they looked, and how they shot.
Look at how when you take that CF98 apart, that's what it looks like. So it's got a weird trigger connected to something, a frame, I guess, connected to this with a hammer on it. barrel isn't connected to nothing with any kind of pin. It's just in there somehow. There's a barrel bushing, and then there's some long ass spring, goofy looking weak ass spring on a guide rod. Like, nothing about that makes me go, yay, I want something that depends on a barrel bushing. Like, I want something that needs a guide rod. Like, I want something that has this big piece here that probably has to be all in line with the rest of the stuff for it to work, but it's not actually connected to the frame. It's just a little free floating thing. All of that looks like, and then, you get 2 pins to hold it all together. So, no, that looks like a bunch of stuff that sounded good in theory and then hasn't been tested. Or if it has been tested, it died, right? Because none of this looks substantial.
It just reminds me of that meme with the African guy. I don't want happiness. I want problems.
I don't know what that sounds like, really, right? Because there's too many things to go wrong here. And then the magazine looks like garbage. That looks like the cheapest wraparound piece of crap. Wait for that magazine to fall or fail. And then the base plate is one piece of metal. Like, that's a lot of engineering, a lot of time into that magazine.
Everything is a problem with that. Again, if you just want unique guns, either one. Pick and choose. If a part breaks,
this one is American now, and it's from South Africa, which is cooler than coming from China in a lot of ways. So,
and again, Wilson Combat might still have some parts in the back of the warehouse somewhere for it if it breaks.
But it is Gen 1. Look, see, guide rod again. No, what do you call that thing? But it does have a goofy, weak ass giant spring this time. Does the spring go around the barrel?
Is it gas operated?
I don't know. It definitely looks blowback though, but it might not be because that barrel isn't attached. I think it's just sitting there. Well, if it was just sitting there, they would. I don't know. It's a goofy design, but everybody was goofy back in the day, and you can tell from the magazines that it was using that. I forget the Beretta essentially.
Yep, Beretta 92.
And then because everybody was like, why waste? Why not use the best magazine? Like, because literally the Beretta was making the best, most reliable, useful magazine. All you had to do was cut it differently and pop your hole in it, and you had a good to go mag. But this Gen 1 plastic stuff, they like to make these pinky base plates, before they figured out that puts pressure on a magazine when you start yanking your finger on here. And
I'll co-sign with you. I'm just, again, reading this article. The guy was able to fire thousands of rounds through it, and he actually carried it. And it does have a gas system like a P7 series from HK in this
the ADP.
South African / Wilson Combat ADP.
All right, so we're calling it the ADP as the cooler, or which is the better of them. Yeah, because the other one's China. No matter what it is, it's China quality. I mean, the top China quality is bottom line any other country quality, really. I mean, China can make some nice stuff, but their nice stuff isn't, well, I don't want to say everything. I'm trying to think of some nice stuff from China, and I appreciate like an AK from China, which a lot of people would disregard as garbage. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand. I don't know. So it doesn't look like a bad Chinese one, but from that take apart picture, it does look like low tech, like there's not a lot of development. So it's probably pretty cheap.
Yeah, so both of us co-sign on to taking the Wilson Combat ADP.
Here's another picture of a part. I'm going to say that this is probably cheaper than Ruger quality for sure. This is cheaper than Beretta quality. This is probably like Star quality.
Nice.
That's what I'm trying to put it in a place, right? All right, well, so hopefully that answered the question. I don't think that person's here listening to it because that question was asked in February. But if you're listening to the podcast, that was the way that it works. We're about an hour in. Has anybody else asked a question? Am I missing anything? Let's say hey to everybody. Mr. Knives from California was first one in. Black Guns and Gardens was saying, hey, I don't know, do you follow that channel?
No, what is that?
I watch them on the Instagram, and then, no, you know what it is? YouTube Shorts. I think Instagram, but it's YouTube Shorts. One of the few channels I like their YouTube Shorts. I don't like going to YouTube Shorts because I hate YouTube Shorts. I hate YouTube to the place where they when they do shorts, because YouTube always feeds me horrible shit shorts. Whenever I watch something that I like, I'll see maybe two things good, and then I start seeing really violent, horrible stuff, and I don't like it. So I have to go back and delete that stuff from my history or whatever. But gardening stuff, short videos, kind of walking around the garden, maybe talking about something new, or it's time of year to start this, or I'm gonna transplant this over there, or just stuff. And I kind of envy the garden because I've had access to good gardens in the past. Like my grandpa had a garden, and I understand. I grew up with a garden, and I understand the and everything. But if I can get everything working according to plan, I travel. Like if I can do everything right, and I did it wrong, and I put a lot on the credit card, so I traveled. But I'm hoping to get to where I can travel a lot. So that's my issue. Is I like to have a garden, but since I travel, the garden suffers. And I'm in Arizona. You don't get a lot of slop. I can't come back to a lot of weeds. I come back to a lot of dead garden. So that's my issue. I'd like to have more of a garden. So I watch other people's gardens and live through them. And
vicariously.
Yeah, exactly. Except people that live in areas that aren't Arizona can have really nice gardens. So I really appreciate it. It's a sustaining garden. He's got like chickens and shit. So it's not just a stuff to have like a fancy yard or whatever landscaping.
Yeah, just follow them. I just followed him. I was checking it out real quick. Yeah, he has a lot of exactly what you said. And I'm gonna see his 22 long rifle for poop hits the fan advantages and disadvantages video of 22 LR. And there's night home defense nightstand handgun. And then there's the herb garden challenge. It's interesting. As someone who grew up, it's funny because when people say garden, like we garden, a lot of people see something on their back porch and they call that a garden, or they have something that you can, what do you call that? 3-4 steps across, that's your garden. You grew we had a garden that was pretty much a football field. We used to plow. We used to plow and a tractor to till it. Actually, it was probably 2 football fields. So,
like full rows of stuff and like full rows of stuff. Yep.
Full, long ass, hot, tedious rows of tomatoes and black eyed peas and lima beans and potatoes. I think I might have said that. We even grew some watermelons. It's just what you did. Snaps, green beans, and we collect those. Family would come over and I love that. Yeah, we're gonna take these over to your aunt's house, your grandmom's house. And I'm like, well, why can't they come and get these some bitches out the garden? In my child mind, it's like because we do it after school, and
that's why
and you can't come home and complain, that your mom made you after school go into the garden because she's coming in after getting off of 8-hour shifted work. And she's out there with us. But yeah, that's what I grew up doing. So I like gardening, but I don't have a chance to do it here because of my living conditions and where I'm at. But that's one of those things I want to do. But my wife is like, I am not growing a garden. So we might do one of those back porch raised beds kind of thing for tomatoes, herbs, and some stuff like that that's easily grown just for personal use.
A lot of stuff in containers and stuff, especially if you're just trying to supplement, with the real food once in a while, like real flavor once in a while.
Yeah, because people don't understand how much yield you need to actually start canning in any significant way. You need to actually.
Well, we had a bunch of garden, but it was essentially like, let's say you had like 2 lots and an extra lot that was a garden, essentially. So it wasn't as big as what you're talking about, but it was big enough that my grandpa has a little tractor and shit because he grew up in a farm and he liked it. So it was like his passion, his hobby and everything. But yeah, they made enough food to definitely go through the winter and everything with canned and fresh and whatever. It's just you could put potatoes in a bucket and put them in the basement and they'd be all right. So there was just ways of storing stuff. But then, like say, the family would come over like with strawberries and something or something like that, and just wail on them a couple of picnics, and all the strawberries are gone. But it's nobody
Yep.
paid for them, just strawberries. So, but anyway, yeah, that's a lot of fun. I remember all that too, and I don't know. I would like to have it again. I go up now. There's a garden, like a farm in that's 3 acres up in kind of Phoenix area, and I've been going to that and enjoying that. I just did a tour of it the other weekend. So anyway, so yeah, thanks to Black Guns and Gardens for saying hey, and then we had Plaid enamel. Am I saying that right? For some reason,
Yeah.
Plaid me off, right? That's Plaid, right? Saying
Yeah.
hey, I think that's a new time, or the first time saying hey on the channel. Mr. Knives again, and that's it. Everybody else has chosen to not say anything. Yeah, maybe it's because the dog making too much snoring. He was sleeping for all night long. I got up maybe, I don't know, 4 hours ago, and he's been napping the whole time. Fed him, he did his business right in front of me here, and then went outside, did his other business, and now he's snoring like if he's done a lot of hard work today. Hard work
That's so cute.
talk about doing hard work when we were kids, I guess. It seemed like hard work. I wasn't anywhere near as big a garden as what you're talking about, but I don't know. But for me, I can remember as you were saying that, like there was the cartoons that I cared about watching, and aside from them, like it was like news and other shit on TV. So I didn't give a crap about TV once the cartoons were over. So I honestly didn't care too much about having chores in the garden because it was fun,
Nope.
Something to do, and it was. I don't know, you'd find a bug or you get out there and see a rabbit or something walking around, that kind of thing. Like there was stuff to encounter out there where what was I going to do inside? Play toys or something? Like, some kiddie more. I didn't mind
I have
doing
no
it.
idea. Oh, by the way, I have no idea how I forgot the rows of freaking corn. Oh my God. Only because just corn was forever, bro. And then you get the corn out. I mean, potatoes took forever too, and you can plow them up a couple of times because we used a hoe. Because you had to weed the garden, you had to put work in, and it didn't bother me because it's freaking food, bro. It's what you eat all year.
Yeah.
So that it's not like, oh man, but
my grandpa started doing potatoes in like leaves, essentially. Like you just keep a bunch of leaves and then make a row, plant the potatoes, and then once they were growing, pile a bunch of leaves around them. And then what that did is made them like you almost could just pick them up out of the leaves and shake them off. It was awesome. So he started that. It was a whole different thing because before that he just did them in the ground and like so you had to dig them out all the time. And you could ruin it by digging it out wrong. But I mean, it's way too long to give you that advice now. But I don't remember when it was. But at some point in my childhood, my grandpa figured that out, and I was like, wow, this is totally wow.
Oh,
it's mind blowing,
Yeah, but we weren't getting that many damn leaves in our field. But yeah, dude, it's really great that I was raised like that and I saw that. I think some people don't, and it's so foreign to them that you could actually be self-sufficient with coming up with at least some of your food and supplementing that part of your bill. Because I didn't hunt. We didn't hunt, but you bought meat at the store. But when most of your vegetables came from a garden, I think the only things we bought some canned vegetables. You purchased canned vegetables also, but we had a lot of pretty much everything we eat came from a garden, and then we canned them. And we had canning. You'd have to boil the mason jars. Yeah, you'd have to boil the mason jars. You'd can them. You'd have the big giant black pot on the stove that you'd put the jars in and seal them and sterilize them. So it was a whole thing, and it's really cool, and I kind of want to get back to that, but it is harder work than people think because you got to lose a lot of stuff through different things. And I think people don't understand when they say, oh, times get hard, I'm just going to start gardening. You got to learn it first. It's trial and error. It's like, hey, if times get hard, I'm just going to buy a gun. Do you know how to use it? Do you know how to clean it, maintain it, shoot it? Do you know what ammo goes in? Do you know how to load the mag? It's a lot of things that aren't intuitive with these things. So, hey, everything ain't easy, but I found a new channel, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a good channel. And he's active. There's channels that barely put stuff out. He puts stuff out pretty much constant, well, on the regular, like a trickle. So it's a cool channel to follow. I was just going to add to that yeah, you got a good point with gardening and stuff, and it's the kind of thing that you can do real well with tomatoes or whatever, and I've gone years and years with good tomatoes, and then you get a year where those really big fat caterpillars come along. They're the big giant moths, and they can literally wipe out. They're big fat ones. They're as big as my fingers, like big giant caterpillars, and they're bright green, and they look the same on both ends, like they have this little horn on both ends. Anyway, they could wipe out a whole tomato plant in a day. Like they're just gluttons. And again, until you encounter that stuff, then you're not on the lookout for the little tiny inchworms that turn into one of those in a day because they ate your whole tomato plant. And that's their goal, is to just gouge, I guess, and then they probably sit there turning into a moth with all that food. But and sometimes it's as simple as tomatoes don't like it, but washing their leaves and stuff. And if you can do that at the right time of day in Arizona, you can do all this without without using pesticides and stuff, and without killing everything out there, just physically removing those worms. And that's those things, unless you've done it for a few times, you've never had the opportunity to encounter that kind of mishap, or that kind of, I don't know what to call that. It's just an eventuality of a natural pest. But until you encountered it, you don't know the countermeasures. You don't know how to prevent it, or maybe, I don't know, you find out that by planting carrots nearby your tomatoes, that repels those things. So now you can deter them, right? And that's the kind of thing, like, it takes time to figure all that out. But like you say, you don't have to go nuts with a full garden. You can experiment with all of that stuff in containers and with small corners of a yard, or like you say, a little raised bed here or there, sneak it in. And sometimes they look real cool, so they can be ornamental or decorative, and then provide a bit of fruit and give you that experience, so that if you do have to say, you know what, now we're going to chop out all that yard over there and turn it into rows, and now you've at least got the experience that, like, hey, if we just simply put carrots next to tomatoes, they do a good job of repelling each other's predators, and it's natural. You don't have to do nothing to it. You just have to have them exist next to each other. And sometimes things are the other way. Sometimes you put something like a flower next to a food crop, and you attract its predator, and now you go out there and your food crop's gone. So anyway, I think there's long-winded way of saying I agree with you on that. So.
Well, I want to tie this back into guns real quick. When you get into something, anything, but we talking firearms now, hook up with the community. You know what I mean? Just don't go purchase the seeds and walk out the door. Talk to people and have conversations. Don't be antisocial. Turn it into a social thing so you can learn from others and they can point you in the right direction. Same thing with the gun range and the gun store. If you've watched YouTube videos and decided that you're going to go buy a Glock 17, you go in the store, you buy a Glock 17, you haven't had a conversation with anyone. Yeah, okay, you just purchased a Glock 17, and you don't know which range to go to, what's a good range, what range sucks, what range has dangerous people going to it that don't pay attention to safety rules, and I'm speaking from experience here. What range has gangbangers that go there practicing their shooting sideways techniques? I can name a range. And what ranges to go to actually learn something. So yeah, when you get into anything, ask questions and don't think you know it all. Because people can guide you into shortcuts like, yeah, sure, you can buy a Glock at full price, or you can pick up a used one. This is a place that has a lot of turnover and they have good guns. Or you can join the GSSF, right? Glock Sports Shooting Foundation. I think that's what it's called, GSSF. And get a discount gun every year from Glock. Just being part of that. So now you got a brand new Glock, but you got it at the same price police pay.
And that's true, and go shoot at one of their events that they do all the time, and potentially they give away at least one, I think maybe 5 free guns or something, like 1 gun per level at each of their events. So they give them away like water. They're really cool about that. It's worth going to. And if you don't win a gun, half time you win like something else. Like they bring stuff to give away at those GSSF events.
And you also have conversation with people, and now you know what holster to buy. You know what light is better, or like what most of the guys have. So it's information you can pick up. Same thing with gardening. So yeah, I mean, we brought it up and we brought it back around the firearms, but I think that goes with any hobby or sport or anything else you get into. Have conversations with people. people love to tell you what they know or what they enjoy. They love talking about that.
Dude, then you brought it right back to the whole point of this show, which was to originally, I was just out there buying domain names, and I was like, oh, Ask Gun Questions is available. I'm going to buy that. And then a couple of years later, when I never really tell the story very much, but whenever I started buying a bunch of domain names is because, one, they were available and I could just buy them and they didn't cost that much. But we were developing stuff for our clients. We were website developers. And if this is way before WordPress and things like that existed. So if you needed something, your website to do some mechanism or some feature, you would just have to you'd have to figure it out. You'd have to create that feature. And a lot of times we would just write the scripts and stuff and make something happen. Maybe I don't know, whatever, the examples are. But the way we did that is I would take something like Ask Gun Questions and put a system up that allowed people to ask questions on it. Maybe one of our lawyers or a pizza place or whatever wanted to be able to ask questions. And we go, how do we make that happen? So we would use this as our test bed. And then whenever we figured out what would work, or maybe 3 options that worked, we'd stick that website out there to just exist. And this was there was forums, but the forums were pretty angry and stuff. So this was an alternative to the forums for people to just find a thing and interact with the internet. And as the internet developed in about 2009 or so, YouTube kind of took over my interest and occupation, or my not occupation, but my time. Most of my time was spent on YouTube because the community grew really fast over on YouTube. It was fairly pleasant. It was curious and collaborative and aware. And in those first years of YouTube, it was really neat to see it expand. And I kind of let the websites crap off from there. So then somewhere around 16 or so, with gun channels kind of rocking, I figured, hey, let's bring Ask Gun Questions back to something. And the easiest way to do that was with a quick form. So the form accepts people's questions and throws them into a database, a spreadsheet. So it's really simple, and there's nothing, we're not collecting emails. It's not like some funnel for some marketing bullshit. It's just a thing. And our Patreons, we have a scroll at the bottom of the screen there. Our Patreons make it possible, although it costs almost probably $30 a year to keep Ask Gun Questions going. They have a lot of websites like that. So all of that is taken care of through people that want to be part of this whole thing. They subscribe over on Patreon or on YouTube. I guess we do have some YouTube subscribers, people that usually hate Patreon. But so that Ask Gun Questions was sort of the kind of started from like our scratch pads or our test beds for some of our tech that we were building. And then eventually WordPress came along, and there was no need for us to build custom stuff anymore. We just kind of transitioned all of our clients over to things that they wouldn't need us for, because our goal is always to make our clients better off, not to keep an income source. So whenever something better came along, we would say, hey, you're paying us a lot of money to develop this infrastructure, and we appreciate it, but you got something that's essentially free now that's going to do that. Let's get you transitioned over to that, and then consider us a consultant, but you don't need to pay us anymore. So as we stopped doing this stuff online, we didn't need our websites to be test beds anymore, and they just kind of crapped off, and a lot of them don't really do anything anymore. But anyway, it's a little history of our thing and how this particular project, this aspect of it, came to light. And then what we're almost at 90 episodes ago, Tony started jumping in on Saturdays. I think I only did this for a couple of weeks until I started inviting people in, because it was like a lecture. I was like, I don't want to just do a lecture. I don't know everything. So I brought in a bunch of people, and you stuck around. Clover stuck around for a long time. So I appreciate your guys' time on it. That being said, I'll shut up. Why don't you take the rest of the time and let people know about whatever is happening with the Diversity Shoot, or any other things you got Train and Learn coming up before too long.
Yep, we got Train and Learn coming up in Atlanta, Georgia at Greenwood with No Other Choice Firearms Training. Kevin Dixie. Look into it if you're a content provider and you're one of those guys that actually want to get involved in YouTube content creation or podcast. It is a very good way to go. It's a professional, educational environment. Also, they have firearms manufacturers that are there that you can talk to. There are never more than 60 attendees. So with such a small audience over a 3-day period, which is Memorial Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, it is really worth going to, being around, and making those connections. If you want to be a part of that, go to nootherchoicetraining.com and you can look it up there. For me, I do diversity shoots. You can find me at diversityshoot.com. What is it? Educates all people on the human right of self-defense, 2A advocacy, introduces them to firearms, and introduces them to real firearms owners so they can see the negative stereotypes that the media created is all a lie. I don't try to change people's mind at one event, but when you start exposing lies and not just beating them over the head with it, most people are smart enough to start thinking on their own a little bit. Wait a minute, someone lied about that. Someone lied about that. I'm like, look into it. I'm not trying to change your mind, but you might want to find out why people are lying to you, telling you gun control is for safety. So that's what we do. And if you want to donate to us, you can go to diversityshoot.com, click on our PayPal link or our Patreon link. And as part of that, when you donate $20, you get entered to win prizes. And this month's prize is a Battle Horse Woodsman knife, and also huge ass bag of SHOT Show swag and items and magazines from SHOT that's only available if you went to SHOT. And I'm giving you days 1, 2, and 3, I think, of those mags. And here's the knife for those that are watching. This is one of those. Yeah, these are one of those small camp knives type that you can just carry on you with a leather sheath that they make there too. It's $125 value alone, plus the swag that we give away, which is you have to fly to Vegas and be in the NSSF to get it otherwise. So please help us out. It's $20 per entry, and that money goes towards hosting the events, travel, and all of that thing. So diversityshoot.com. You can also follow me at SimonSaysTrain on Instagram, SimonSaysTrain on Facebook. The second is for everyone on Facebook, and second for 2ND for everyone on Twitter. Also, we have the Second is for Everyone podcast that you can listen to on your favorite podcast app. We had the last one just come out 2 weeks ago, and the Easter one that I recorded, I just finished doing my Gear Horse segment right before this show started. That will be out either today or tomorrow because I have to put the commercials in. So that's going to be episode 99. So listen to a podcast, send me a message if you like it. If you don't like it, any critiques you have, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate coming on, talking about guns and everything else we discuss on this show.
Right on. I really like it too. I don't do a lot of grip angles and red dot type of discussions. I'm sitting in on them, but I don't really have a lot to add. So I appreciate the ability to just act like an old timer and offer an alternative point of view. Anyway, so we'll be back again next Saturday unless something goes on. And thanks for watching. I'll throw a quick commercial up here for our store, and see you. Have a good week, everybody. I probably should have had that queued up. There we go.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Yo, so I did that IG live with Edgar from Guns for Everyone.